In the heart of West London is where this story comes from. And there was a betrayal which was unfolding that would ultimately expose a family's hunger for wealth and their ruthless capacity for deception. 5 relatives orchestrated an audacious heist cloaked in lies, fear and betrayal. What happened to be a brazen armed robbery at a quiet local post office in Hounslow was in fact a meticulously staged crime, conceived and carried out by those entrusted with protecting the premises. The cast of the conspirators wasn't drawn from hardened criminals or strangers to the law. These were ordinary people to the outside world. A respected sub-post mistress, her children, her in-laws. But behind the mask, both literal and metaphorical, lay a plot that would waste police resources, deceive an entire community, and siphon over £136,000 into a black hole of foreign accounts and vanished money. The plan was carefully executed, but the cold, calculated cruelty with which they manipulated the truth in each other shocked even seasoned detectives. So it began on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, and the emergency services received a frantic call from the post office located within a small convenience store on Brabazon Road in Hounslow. A robbery, they were told. A man, masked, armed, threatening, had stormed into the branch waving a pistol at the terrified staff and made off with £50,000 in cash and the post office's CCTV system. When police arrived, the scene looked like an aftermath of a violent heist. The drawers flung open, the safe empty, and the 2 employees, Sunavir Dillon, a 68-year-old sub-post mistress, and a 40-year-old daughter-in-law, Rajvinder Khalon, appeared pale, distraught, and visibly shaken. They insisted a man with a gun had forced his way in to make demands and vanished with the money and the branch's surveillance records. Their performances were Oscar-worthy, just like B. But they weren't victims, they were architects. So the plot, as investigators would later unravel, was the brainchild of a man, Sukhveer Dillon, a 38-year-old with ambition. He had buried resentment and a taste for luxury far from beyond his declared means. Sukhveer was the son of Sunavir and husband to Ramandeep. Through them he had access to the financial workings of the post office, and he used that access with surgical precision. It's believed that he used to drive around in supercars around the area, and people used to look at his lifestyle in awe, thinking, wow, this guy's absolutely smashing it. Little did they know what he was actually up to. He was the one who knew when the safe would be full, when payments, deliveries and customer transactions would peak, and he knew that if the story of a violent robbery could be made convincing enough, the missing money might vanish and become untraceable. Sukhveer recruited his cousin, Rajvinder Khalon, a taxi driver from Hounslow, and his role was simple: put the mask on, storm the branch, act like a villain, get a little plastic gun, no real threat, just fear, theatre timing, it's all going to get caught on CCTV, and be gone. But in exchange, Khalon said, I'm not doing this for free, fuck you, I want some money for this. He wanted assurance, he wanted to know that if anything went wrong, his sacrifice wouldn't go unpaid. He was in essence the family's fall guy, and he would soon learn just how expendable he really was. When he had this discussion with his cousin, he goes, listen, I'm doing this for you. So, unbeknown to the public, the real theft had occurred hours, perhaps even days before the supposed robbery. Sukhveer Dillon had already removed the bulk of the cash from the branch's safe, the cheeky fucker. He had also extracted the hard drive containing weeks of CCTV footage, ensuring that when the fake robbery took place, there would be no footage to disprove it. The scene was staged down to the smallest detail. Even the fear in the women's eyes was rehearsed. Ramandeep claimed she'd been inches from death. Sunavir, a trusted elder, feigned terror as she encountered the ordeal to detectives. But as the investigation unfolded, it became clear these weren't traumatized victims. They were complicit actors in the vile charade. Their undoing began with arrogance. Khalon, the man in the mask, had tried to flee through the rear of the building after his robbery, climbing over a metal fence. But guess what? When he jumped over that fence, he cut himself. It was a small wound to him. He probably didn't know it at the time, but what did he leave behind? DNA. What? His blood on the fence. When forensic confirmed the match, the facade began to crack. Police pulled Khalon's phone records. The log showed persistent communication with Sukhveer Dhillon the days before and after the robbery. He hadn't acted alone. He wasn't an attacker. He was the pawn. He was arrested and charged with armed robbery, ironically, the very crime the family had fabricated. And shockingly, Khalon was prepared to plead guilty straight away, believing that his silence by loyalty for his cousin. He was willing to go to prison for a crime he never committed in a robbery that never truly happened. However, remember, he expected a reward. His cousin promised him. Instead, he was left to rot. In court, Judge Lindsay Rose laid bare the family's cruelty and deceit. She spoke of the extraordinary lengths the defendant had gone in order to mislead investigators and manipulate the justice system. The lies diverted police resources that might have been used to protect genuine victims. Their greed, she said, was insatiable. She told them again and again, "You lied. You lied. This was a crime fueled by greed, and you staged this with a chilling degree of calculation. You used your jobs, your positions of trust, and even your family ties to cover all this up." So check this out. Khalon, he was initially arrested and appeared at out of Crown Court charged with the armed robbery of Ramandeep Dhillon and Sunavir Dhillon. Before the inside job was actually revealed, and Khalon indicated at a pre-trial review that he was willing to plead guilty to the bogus charge before the prosecution requested. As I said, the judge said, "You were the fall guy for this. The robbery failed at his role. You were even willing to enter a guilty plea that would have seen you serve a sentence of years imprisonment for a crime you didn't actually commit. What the fuck was your reasoning behind that?" "I know what it was. It was greed." The judge then said Khalon was hoping to be paid handsomely by Sukhveer Dhillon for keeping quiet, adding that the family's lies were maintained over the investigation and prosecution of Khalon. So, in mitigation for Khalon, his solicitor said his client became involved in the plot because of an overpowering of his mind by brotherly love. He added that Khalon was remorseful and denied ever having a firearm in his possession or transferring money over borders. But the audit from a post office found that the actual amount of money missing from the store was around £136,000. Not even a fucking penny of the money has ever been recovered. The court heard that some of the stolen money may have been sent to India and Canada while they travelled to those countries. Sentencing the family, the judge said, "You carefully planned a false robbery at the time when you knew the maximum amount of money would be at the post office. You lied, and you lied again." Judge Rose says the Dhillon's family expenditure and lifestyle far exceeds their income. She told them, "You enjoyed multiple expenses. You had the flashiest cars, you used to drive around Hounslow like bad boys. You went on holidays, you had the biggest houses. You had a very large house in Virginia Water, and that enjoyed a very expensive renovation." So Sukhveer Dhillon was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for his part in the conspiracy after being found guilty of the same charges at Khalon. Sentencing him, Judge Rose said, "You were the person that was the lead of this offence. You planned what would happen, organised it, and put everyone in place." Sunavir Dhillon, the mother of Sukhveer Dhillon, was sentenced to 3 years and 1 month imprisonment for her part in the conspiracy after being found guilty of the same charges as Khalon. Sentencing her, Judge Rose said, "You went to work to give an air of authenticity to this crime, making sure the safe was open and using your role as sub-post mistress to make sure the maximum amount could be taken." Ramandeep Dhillon, the wife of Sukhveer Dhillon, was sentenced to 2 years and 5 months imprisonment for the same charge. Sentencer Judge Rose said, "You were no doubt bought in for your acting abilities, happy to play your part in acting scared and upset by this fake robbery. You even lied there about being a gun." Another family member, Mandeep Gill, was sentenced to 2 years and 4 months imprisonment after being found guilty of conspiracy to pervert the course of justice and conspiracy to money launder. Gill was not brought into the conspiracy until after the false police report was made, with the prosecutor, Richard Reynolds, adding that her role was lesser than the others. So Mr. Reynolds said, the conspiracy was a particularly cynical plan in the light of the Post Office Horizon controversy, adding that it came at a time when public awareness and concern about the Horizon scandal was at its absolute peak.